Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Conversations with the Tarot by Maria DeBlassie, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Introduction. When people think of the tarot, they think of mysterious fortune tellers and strange portents whispered under the watchful gaze of the full moon. They think of B horror movie foreshadowing, or the time they went with friends to a psychic late one night after a bad breakup and one too many drinks at the bar down the street. The tarot is, in other words, so commonplace it's almost a Gothic story cliche, and yet, for many, just otherworldly enough to feel out of reach in the daylight. Me? I just finished my morning cup of coffee and tarot draw. I like to pull a card first thing after I've completed my sunrise routine of making the bed, stretching out on my yoga mat, and feeding my familiar while listening to the news. My daily tarot pull has become part of that mundane ritual, a transition from the ephemeral just woke up to ready for the day's work, teaching or writing, depending on the day. Sometimes I have a very specific question based on the events of the week or my sleep the night before. They can be follow-up questions to startling dream time revelations, for example, or advice on a situation that doesn't seem to have a resolution in sight. Sometimes my morning draw is simpler than that. I say good morning to the cards, shuffle the deck, shuffle the deck, and see what it wants to tell me. Other times I'm seeking answers to a feeling, a vibe that I can't quite place and need insight on, or an expected plot twist in my life so baffling I just shuffle the deck and let my feelings, confusions, and thoughts on the matter flow through me and ask the tarot to comment on the situation and the energy surrounding it. In other instances, the tarot comes to me. A card falls from the deck as I shuffle, or as I see the same card over and over again in my draws and randomly on social media, in books, in articles. The tarot wants to make sure I get the message. Sometimes I even dream about it. It's as simple as seeing repeated tarot imagery in my dream life, or as on the nose as literally dealing that tarot card in a vision. In other words, the tarot has become such a mundane part of my life, part of my daily routine, my day in, day out, my witchy business, that it's magical. The tarot and I are one. We've developed our own bond over the years that only continues to grow and deepen as I work with it. And it is a partnership, a relationship developed on mutual respect and understanding. As strange as that may sound, unless you are someone who knows the power of bonding with a good book or a beloved jazz album. I don't tell the tarot what to do, and it doesn't tell me what to do, except, of course, if I keep bugging it, in which case it tells me to leave it alone and figure it out myself. Most of the time we talk. It's a quiet conversation, like the kind I have with my familiar, the kind that involves a lot of listening and a lot of sensitivity. You could say that the tarot is a lot like a cat. It doesn't like to be manhandled, and it will only open up to you if you are willing to take the time to get to know it. It won't be forced or rushed or told what to do. It also gets a little pissy if you try to coddle it too much. It has its own way of doing things, just like a cat, and it's best to go in with a healthy respect. If you do, well, then a pretty wonderful and affectionate relationship will follow. So, in other words, my understanding of the tarot has developed quite a bit since I started working with it. I, like so many others, once saw it as a mysterious occult artifact too often used as a prop in supernatural tales or the toolkit of highly trained mystical folks with deep knowledge of the esoteric realms. Now I see it as a wonderful everyday confidant of sorts that helps me tune into my intuition and get insight into the world around me. And yeah, sometimes I use it in my stories to give ominous foreshadowing or Gothic symbolism. Hey, the mystique is part of the joy. The origin of the tarot, in fact, is as playing cards, and that mundane inception carried over into its more new age reincarnation as a divination tool. Rather than being some sort of scary occult mystery, the tarot was designed to be accessible to everyday people interested in the mystic, which speaks to me deeply as a bruja who has always felt that true magic is in the everyday. I've written whole books on the topic and center my whole mystic practice on the simple concept, everyday magic. It tells us that spirituality, or the numinous, isn't something outside ourselves that can only be found in formal arcane rituals or institutionalized religions, but in something that is lived out in day-to-day life. The mystic is within us and a part of us, just as we are a part of the natural world and the greater universe. In fact, the more we align with this fundamental understanding, the more magical our lives become. Life unfolds as a waking dream, synchronicities abound, and we find the answers we need in life by simply attuning ourselves to the unseen world. It's that simple and that hard. It takes a whole lot of trust and a whole lot of vulnerability to let go and open yourself to the subtle magic of the universe. That's why the tarot can be helpful in getting perspective and cultivating our innate ability to know ourselves and the world around us. We live in a world that loves concrete, extroverted realities, not the quiet, soft things, the ephemeral things that sometimes can't be explained by words or logic. In fact, that's how I first got into studying the tarot. I was looking for a way to deepen my spiritual practice. Sounds fancy, right? Roughly translated into everyday speak, I was looking to get perspective on my life and have more confidence in my own understanding of the world. I've always had solid instincts about people, places, situations, and what I've wanted out of my life, but then other people's viewpoints began to cloud my vision. Likewise, working in the world of academia could, when I wasn't sensitive enough to my own needs, dampen my gut feelings. Sometimes it still does. A college campus can be a wonderful place to grow and learn and teach. It can also be a place that can teach you to live inside your head if you're not careful. Life is a total body, mind, and spirit experience, and my journey into the tarot has been, in part, my journey into reconnecting to myself more holistically. And like any good conjuring, exploring the tarot reminds us that the power is within us and all around us, not something that needs to be manufactured or forced. We just need to be open and receptive, then flow with the energy. There is much magic in opening ourselves to the possibilities not yet imagined. The tarot came to me at a time when I was beginning to open myself to those kinds of possibilities, exploring who I was outside of my day job. It was also an integral part of relearning my intuitive self, that internal voice, that gut reaction that told me all I needed to know about a situation. The voice many of us have so often silenced or ignored because it runs counter to mainstream culture values. And as it happens, my tarot journey began with a wonderful act of synchronicity. It's an old superstition that you have to be gifted your first deck. That's not true. When you're ready to explore the tarot, simply find a deck that speaks to you. But in my case, that's exactly what happened. I was gifted my first deck, which was an important message to me to get going on my tarot studies. I had literally been thinking that the tarot was something I wanted to explore. I hadn't told anyone about this desire, but it kept coming back to me in dreams and synchronous social media posts featuring the tarot and the display of tarot decks at my favorite metaphysical shop. It just kept popping up, kept speaking to me. Then, on my birthday, my parents gifted me with my first tarot deck, the Mother Piece Tarot. The message was clear. It was time to begin my tarot journey. I started with the Mother Piece and, after a time, decided to seriously explore the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, widely considered the standard deck in symbolism and iconography, so that I could understand the foundation of this form of divination. When I started, however, the whole thing felt daunting, like I was approaching some super important occult metaphysical thing. And if I'm being honest, some of that was shaped by pulp culture. The shows and movies that featured fortune tellers and mystics reading complex Celtic cross spreads and effortlessly unpacking the conversations the cards were having that correlated to very clear plot points in the story. Fun fact, the tarot is rarely that transparent, but sometimes, uncannily, it can be, in retrospect. Still, I felt like I needed a way to ground and focus my explorations, and being a writer as well as a bruja, journaling and scribbling will always be some of the most profound forms of conjuring for me. That's how my Tarot Tuesday project was born. Starting in 2018, every week-ish, hey, I'm only human, and the college semester being what it is, I took a break every now and then. I would draw from the deck, study the card, and write a 78-word story based on synchronicity and the conversation I had had with the given card. 78 words for the 78 cards in the tarot. I'd write about each card upright or reversed, however they presented themselves to me. There was much freedom in those imposed limits. Clear parameters allowed me to explore each card freely. With each post, I published my 78-word musing and a little bit of context, what I call insights in this book, to explain how I was reading this card in the context of my studies, my daily life, and whatever synchronicity decided to add. For example, my plan was to only go through each card once, but the tarot had other ideas. In what can only be considered an act of trickster-worthy proportions, the Three of Pentacles reappeared almost a year after I had first written about it. Clearly, my deck felt I wasn't done with this card's wisdom during this project. This is something I've seen happen again and again as I've continued to converse with the tarot. The same card will continue to appear until I've internalized its message. In the case of the Three of Pentacles, it first came to me reversed in the summer of 2019, at a time when I was learning there was such a thing as overworking or plodding along without getting desired results. It's one thing to give it your all, and quite another to throw away time and energy on projects with diminishing returns. So I used the wisdom of that card to get serious about the kind of work I wanted to do moving forward. Work that was nourishing to both myself and my students, but that didn't leave my inner well dry. I needed more time for replenishment and rest. Close to a year later, after I thought I'd put the card aside in my red pile for this project, it appeared again, this time upright. A welcome reminder of how far I'd come in my efforts to create more work-life balance. While I still had a ways to go, this will no doubt always be a work in progress for me. I'd gotten to a point where I was better at applying myself to meaningful, fulfilling work that generated growth and excitement rather than depletion and burnout. I welcome the synchronous reading from the tarot, especially since it occurred during the start of the pandemic, and so much of my life felt topsy-turvy. The tarot swooped in to remind me that I'd grown more than I thought, and I wasn't so unmoored as I felt. What a relief. I'll leave you with one more example of the magic that can happen when you develop your relationship with the tarot. One I didn't know existed until it hit me square in the third eye around the 2020 spring equinox and during week 3 of the first pandemic lockdown in New Mexico. I pulled the Queen of Wands, and in that card, I felt a deep affinity for who I was at my core, who I wanted to be again. She is a quietly gregarious person, but also very much a figure who walks her own path and finds joy in living her own way on her own terms. And joyful she is, as sunshine and sunflowers surround her. My favorite part of the card, the one that spoke to me so deeply, is the little black cat sitting at her feet, front and center, boldly eschewing the superstition that black cats are bad luck. I too have a black cat, my familiar, who daily reminds me to walk my own path and find joy in the unexpected enchantments that come from nourishing my own vision of the world. People think being an introverted rebel bruja means being isolated, salty, and antisocial. Frankly, how I'd been feeling with the burdens of the pandemic, even being in its early stages, and the weight of the systemic oppressions and inequality that it magnified. But here was the Queen of Wands telling me on the spring equinox, a time for planting soul seeds and intentions, that being who I was is an act of joy, one that leads to meaningful connections more than a little magic. I didn't have to fit in or toe the line. I didn't have to burn it all to the ground to make a meaningful change. I could be myself and find soul-nourishing solutions to my problems, ones that would allow me to live more deeply, more freely. Since our first meeting, the Queen of Wands regularly speaks to me. She is my affinity card, the one I most embody and the one that shades how I read the rest of the deck. She is hope, she is pleasure, she is joy, things we can all struggle to embody when the stresses of daily life gets us down. Never fear, she reminds us, our capacity for joy is within us always. We just need to trust our instincts and embrace what makes us unique. After 2.5 years or so of devoting myself to this project, I'd gone through the whole tarot and had a much better understanding of how it worked. Perhaps more importantly, I'd bonded with my Rider-Waite-Smith deck and relearned fundamental aspects of myself, including how I wanted to be in the world, how I saw things. It also showed me that my instincts were spot on and that I could trust what I was feeling even without the cards. This project guided me through the wild waters of publishing my first book and later during the pandemic, showing me just how powerful the tarot can be when it comes to offering wisdom and insights as we navigate the good and the unexpected in our lives. But this study didn't make me an expert. I'm still very much a tarot novice. Can we ever really claim mastery over a topic that changes as we deepen our explorations? As someone who has made a living doing research in one way or another, I've come to one solid conclusion. Study only ever teaches us how little we know. And I find, thanks to the ever unfolding mysteries of the tarot, I am quite all right with that. This project has led to the development of my Bruja's Guide to Tarot, where I show others how to begin their tarot journey and how to consult the deck to help us heal our relationship to hope, pleasure, and the magic of everyday life. But I would have never had the confidence in my own readings of the tarot if I hadn't first explored them through my Tarot Tuesday project, which I have retitled Conversations with the Tarot for this book. I tell you this so that you can take comfort in knowing that none of us know what we're doing when we first start developing a relationship with the tarot, but in retrospect, we see patterns emerging in terms of how we read and understand the cards. A little time, a little attention, a little willingness to be vulnerable and look silly trying something new. It leads to a whole lot of magic. This is very much a book about learning the tarot, and it's very much about encouraging those who find a resonance with the tarot to dive in and explore. But this isn't a book about how to do that. It's a book about the relationship you develop with the deck as you explore it. It's a mediation into the archetypes and the energy within it. It's about the art of conversing with the tarot and letting the revelations from those conversations unfold and develop as you would a chat with a good friend over a pot of tea. It's likewise a study in how the tarot can really help us in our daily lives. When I started this project, I was beginning to return to my fiction writing and allowing myself to dream bigger about what my teaching career could look like. I ended this project in the middle of the first year of a global pandemic. Certainly not something I was expecting when I started it. But the tarot was there to soothe and guide me even then, to offer me the star when the pandemic first hit New Mexico. It was a soothing card telling me it was time to pull inward, lean into our first lockdown, and really focus on self-care. So this needed to be a time to reevaluate my life and shed anything that was holding me back. It also gave me a cosmic perspective as the star sees the whole of the universe high up in the sky. The emotional distance to process an unprecedented situation that this card offered was a soothing balm to my heavy heart and frayed nerves in a situation where I felt very little emotional distance. So, you see, the tarot helped me through the various stages of the pandemic, guiding me to lean into this time of solitude rather than feed the panic and hysteria outside my sanctuary, a genuine privilege I know since I could work from home. This book is also about keeping things simple. As I say in all my work, true magic is in the everyday. Translating that to my work with the tarot, all 78 word stories and insights are about finding joy in our daily lives, starting by understanding that mundane is magic. As for those Celtic cross readings, I'll never get to those in my tarot reading life. Sure, I suppose I could try them now and have done a few 5 and over spreads. Honestly, I still love the basic 1 to 3 card spreads. There is only so much I can absorb of the nuances of symbolism, and in my daily tarot conversations, I find there is much to unpack with just one card and the energy surrounding my question, depending what is going on in my life at the time. I have no interest in getting too complicated about my readings. Similarly, I have no interest in reading for others. For me, the tarot is a private thing, the thing I turn to when I need a confidant, someone who can give me the insights. But as with any true confidant, it is important to know when to talk and when to trust yourself. You don't want to start looking to the tarot to be your magic 8-ball. It'll stop talking to you. Like a cat tired of being badgered by needy humans, it can and will walk away from you. The tarot is a confidant, sure, but not one you will want to run to every time you're conflicted about something, lest you wear out your welcome. That's why I emphasize the conversational aspect of reading the tarot. It does not have magical answers for you or easy solutions. It merely offers you some insights and, with luck, helps you better trust your own instincts.